The Adepts in the Esoteric Classical Tradition by Manly Palmer Hall. Part 1. The Initiates of Greece and Rome. Copyright 1981, published by the Philosophical Research Society. Initiates of Greece and Rome. Preface. Early authorities on the Greek and Roman mysteries are not always in agreement, and later interpretations are largely influenced by personal convictions. In the time lapse between the fall of the Roman Empire and the Renaissance, there was little interest in classical paganism. In recent years, however, mystical traditions are being explored by advanced thinkers in a number of fields who are seeking a better understanding of man's place in the divine plan. In the Greek esoteric tradition, those who received the higher grades in the sanctuaries of the mysteries were called initiates, a term equivalent to adepts in the mystical terminology of post-Christian Europe. Discussion of the mystery system and its initiates must begin with a definition of those sacred institutions which were the foundations of classical learning. All the enlightened nations of antiquity maintained sacerdotal institutions which were equally important to the security of the state and the well-being of the citizenry. From the beginning, these mystery schools were dedicated to the deities of various regions, and those accepted into the secret rites were bound with the strongest possible obligations to defend the spiritual and ethical codes which had been bestowed upon humanity in antediluvian times. All seeking instruction must proclaim their obedience to the divine institutes, live uprightly, and use the knowledge that had been bestowed upon them for the greater glory of deity and the lasting benefit of mankind. Three labors of the mysteries were the redemption of all sentient beings, the restoration of the universal religion, and the reformation of human society. Efforts to explore the secret teachings which constituted the spiritual arcana have never been completely successful. The principal esoteric cults were the Eleusinian, Dionysian, Orphic, and Samothracian. Except for minor variations, all taught the same doctrine, derived from the theogony of Hesiod, which in turn made use of the symbolism from sages whose identities were concealed by the dark curtain of prehistory. All the systems were permeated with the sublime concept of salvation through regeneration. As the most famous of the mysteries was the Eleusinian, we shall restrict ourselves principally to these rites, which involve elements of other systems, including the Egyptian mysteries of Isis and Osiris. Unfortunately for posterity, the actual ceremonies performed at Eleusis were never communicated to the profane, but elements of this sublime pageantry are referred to by many classical authors. Extensive research has revealed fragments of these ancient systems in philosophical writings, dramas, and poetry, and selections from these authors will be quoted in our text. Surviving fragments of the Pythagorean schools, the Orphic hymns, and the scenes from the initiatory dramas preserved in the decorations on Etruscan vases are among the most valuable of the surviving records. Many of the early church fathers referred to the Greek mysteries, and some were probably initiates of this ancient rite. H.P. Blavatsky points out that St. Paul had been initiated in the mysteries. He testifies to that fact by his statement that his head was shorn at Synchria, where later Lucius Apuleius was initiated. Blavatsky also quotes the following lines from the Epistle of Paul: "We speak wisdom among the perfect or initiated, not the wisdom of this world, nor the archons of this world, but divine wisdom in a mystery secret which none of the archons of this world knew." The identification of initiates presents an even greater difficulty. Every free person of good character was entitled to receive the lesser mysteries, as none but the initiated could participate in the secret rites. It was necessary that both men and women be accepted and bound by the same obligations. In the course of the ceremonies, the 12 Olympian deities were personified by the members of the sacred orders, the gods by men and the goddesses by women. The Eleusinian sanctuary was sustained by the state, and the altars were attended by the priests and priestesses serving the deity to be propitiated. On several of the Etruscan vases, Hercules is introduced as the embodiment of courage and moral strength. He was definitely referred to as an initiate, and in honor of his coronation he was lifted up to the heavenly abode, to abide forever among the constellations. Ulysses, having successfully survived the enmity of Neptune, was also raised to the heroic estate, but was not equal to Hercules. From the facts available, we are forced to conclude that nearly all Grecians must be numbered among the initiates, Some, however, advanced further than others, and their names have survived to us from the testimonies of their contemporaries. We are assured that the Eleusinian adepts did not practice magical arts, considering all such exhibitions as unworthy of true sages. We use the word wisdom to signify a high degree of learning, or greatness of knowledge. In the mysteries, the word was reserved for the initiates of the greater rites, who alone are worthy to be called the wise. Even Pythagoras, probably the most initiated man in history, felt himself unworthy to be a philosophist, and coined for his own use of the term philosophist. Philosopher, meaning a friend or a lover of wisdom. After the mysteries were brought to Rome, a few Romans were ennobled by the participation in the esoteric instruction, but the rites themselves were gradually debased. Even among the Romans, however, the mysteries were never exposed. The last stronghold of classical esoteric religion was in Alexandria, during the period of the Greek pharaohs. The Neoplatonists did everything in their power to restore and exalt the essential meaning of these rites of redemption. The times, however, were not favorable. Material ambitions were strong, and not many approached the gates of the holy life. The Eleusinian adepts found a few who were qualified to carry on the secret teachings, and many of the masters died without a successor. In his little book on the temple, Hugh H. L. Bellot examines in considerable detail the history of the inner temple, the earliest and most important of the London Inns of Court. This complex of buildings was for some time the headquarters of the Knights Templars in England. Bellot notes that the chapel of St. Anne was originally used by the Templars as a place of initiation into their order. The initiatory Freemasonry of Eleusis was conducted by the means of 2 floors, one over the other, communicating with 7 steps, but at Dendra and elsewhere the steps are 14. Here then the novice was initiated into the order of the Knights Templar. This novitiate bore a strong resemblance to the exterior initiation practiced in the Icenian and Eleusinian mysteries. It would appear from the description that the Knights Templars perpetuated certain of the rituals established in classical antiquity. It may well be, therefore, that these rites reached England in the 12th or 13th century, and have survived in modern Freemasonry. There was also a brief revival in Florence under the patronage of Lorenzo de' Medici. One of the teachings of the initiate tradition in Greece related to the mystery of time. The temple did not divide duration into past, present, or future. Divine and universal laws manifest themselves in an eternal now. Enlightenment belongs to no generation, nor does it increase or diminish. It is always and everywhere. Those who deserve it receive it. And if institutions fade away, the individual remains leader of his own destiny. The illumined ones, by walking along the path of merit, attain the sublime estate which is without beginning or end. In any land, in any generation, those who ascend to the sovereign truths of existence are the true initiates of this great mystery system.